Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fear and Social Anxieties. This is our second class. I am Dr. Dilsora Fozilova. In our first class, I provided some review of sociological concepts and theories because we are going to use them to understand fear in society. Especially sociological imagination will be a very useful concept to understand how fear experiences in different conditions and in different societies. So today's class is actually an introductory class for fear and social anxieties. What I'm going to do today is I will talk about the sociology of fear and why we study fear in society, culture of fear, and also I am going to review some of the questions we are going to deal in our course in today's class. So, what is a sociology of fear? The sociology of fear is a subfield of sociology. It's one area that examines the social, cultural, institutional dimensions of fear and anxiety within societies. It explores how fear is socially constructed. Actually, fear is socially constructed, experienced, and managed, and how it shapes individual and collective behavior. In some cases, fear is actually created to control society. One of the things we need to know about fear is just like a conflict. We have to see fear as a fabric in society. It just takes us in different directions to analyze social fear. For example, social construction of fear tells us that sociologists study how fear is constructed and perpetuated through social processes, cultural narratives, media representations, and institutional practices. They analyze how societal norms, values, and power dynamics influence perceptions of risk and vulnerability. If fear wasn't constructed socially, it would be same everywhere and same for everybody. But the experience of fear depends on the person who are experiencing them. Also, we study impact of fear in social structures. The sociology of fear, or fear and anxieties, examines how fear influences social structures, institutions, and relationships. It explores how fear shapes public policies, laws, and governance, and also as well as the interpersonal interactions and community dynamics. Fear impacts social structures immensely. In our course, we are going to explore different areas, for example, historical areas, residential schools in Canada, or totalitarian governments, to see how fear impacted society and also social structures. The sociology of fear also looks at the inequality and marginalization because of fear, or how fear is distributed between different classes in society. Sociologists investigate how fear intersects with social inequalities, discrimination, and marginalization. Certain groups may experience heightened levels of fear due to systemic factors such as racism, sexism, poverty, or other forms of oppression. From the history, we know that there was a slavery, for example, and those who were enslaved, how they experienced fear. Or we are aware of the colonial time in certain parts of the world, how people in those situations, how did they experience fear? So fear is experience different, or distribution of fear was different in between different classes in society. Sociology of fear also study the role of media and communication in creating and distributing fear. The sociology of fear considers the role of mass media, social media, and communication technologies in amplifying or mitigating fear. It examines how media representations of crime, for example, terrorism, health crisis, spread of COVID, or other threats, contribute to collective anxieties. If you remember when the COVID-19 started, we really didn't understand what was going on, and people have different levels of fear, and the people were not going out or wearing masks and gloves, and there was toilet paper, bathroom tissue phenomena. Somehow, because of the fear, social fear, people start to act differently, act in a way that they didn't understand themselves, right? That's why sociology of fear also studies fear in power dynamics. They analyze how fear is used as a tool of social control and political manipulation. Sociologists study how governments, institutions, and powerful actors exploit fear to justify what they are doing, their actions, policies. They try to maintain authority or mobilize public support. Sociologists also study responses to fear, how people act and how people talk, what they do, the certain kind of actions from society is studied because of, in response to fear. So the sociology of fear then is one of the most important mechanisms through which the structures of society are transmitted to individual psychological functions. That is from writing of Ilias, 1982. The role of fear, Hanks argues, is much neglected in social sciences. And I am really agree with this statement because, as I mentioned already, I see fear being as important as conflict. Conflict is one of the main theories in society, but compared to conflict, fear is more or less neglected, I assume. Fear is a social phenomena. Anything we just don't understand enough, or there are so many things to learn about it, that is a social phenomena. Cultural norms shape the way fear is experienced. For example, in certain cultures, the certain experiences, people are not feared from it. But for other cultures, the same actions or same way of living or practices can be fearful or it can be scary, right? The intensity of fear is also not directly proportional to the objective character of specific threat. If you think about the COVID-19 case, everybody was experiencing fear differently. Some people were like, oh, you know what, it's okay, it will come and go. There was this kind of stuff in the past. It will be just fine, right? Some other people were like, what's going on and what we need to do? Everybody's dying. People are losing their families. There's like they have this uncontrolled, intensive fear towards COVID-19. Fear, on the other hand, does not just happen. It is socially constructed. If we study fear from psychological perspective, we can see that little children until 6 years, 6 months old, they don't even scared of, for example, snakes or certain things most adults are scared of. That means until they understand some things about the snake or the stuff that may be dangerous, they do not fear from them. For example, hot iron. If you put that hot iron beside a child, they can just touch it. Why? They are not scared of it. They don't understand the meaning of the ironing machine. They don't know that can be hot and burn their hands. Fear is really the product of social construction. If we keep talking about something that is being dangerous, and if we keep exploring the different ways of that thing being dangerous, then there will be a fear in society towards that object or event or something going on. The impact of fear is determined by how it is constructed in society. Probably what I'm telling to you today is not really clear, and we will be exploring this way more and deeper in our next classes. And also, fear is shaped by cultural scripts. There is a stories in every culture, and there is a norms in every culture that is constructed over hundreds of years, and that the shaping of fear or construction of fear is embedded in this cultural scripts. We can see them when we read the stories or scriptures of cultural production. So, what is really fear then? Fear is one of the strongest and most important emotional response triggered by the perception of danger, threat, or harm. So, that is a perception of danger, threat, or harm. That means it is not danger, it is not harm yet. It's just the anticipation to it, just before that happens. Maybe the thing you're seeing is not dangerous, but when you see that object or something happening, you can get very scared, thinking that can be dangerous. So that tells us the fear is actually a response to triggered perception of danger. It's a natural and adaptive survival mechanism that if we have this fear, there is a freeze or flight mode. Some people can freeze when they are very scared of something, or some people run away from the situation, right? So our organism or our brain naturally responds to the perception of danger or threat or harm. Fear can manifest as feelings of anxiety, apprehension, worry, or dread, and it often promotes psychological reactions such as increased heart rate, sweating, heightened alertness. Some people can get like a cold shower, or there are different kinds of reactions to fear. So somebody can say that, okay, this is kind of like a psychological response to certain things. It's an emotional process. Why then sociologists pay so much attention, right? As we explained earlier, there are so many things that is very important for sociology to study fear. That is because it's a social construction, and it impacts social structures. It also shows us how fear is distributed unequally between different classes or groups. And there is a role of media and communication in distribution of fear. Fear is part of power dynamics that people create fear to control people. And sociologists also study the responses to fear. Just to review one more time. So we said fear is socially constructed. How fear can be socially constructed? So fear can be understood as a socially constructed and context dependent phenomena. So what does it mean? So if there is a situation, the fear is experienced in society, you can read about it or watch documentary about it, but you maybe don't feel that fear people experienced. So, as I mentioned in our first class, sociological imagination tells us that person, that individual experiences and historical processes need to be examined to understand what's going on, what people are experiencing at that time. Basically, you have to put yourself in the body of the person who's experiencing fear to understand what's going on. It just takes so much imagination and thinking of being in that situation to understand how fear is experienced in certain societies. Fear is influenced by social factors such as culture, socialization, media, and institutions. As we said, like children may not experience fear until they understand the danger coming from certain object or certain event. When we start to realize there is a danger in certain objects or events, then we start experiencing fear. So that tells us that fear is socially constructed. Different societies or social groups may define and respond to fear differently based on shared beliefs, norms, and values. For example, when I talked to some of my students in last term, they were talking about child brides in certain cultures. And they were saying that how these little girls are not scared of being a bride and taking on so much responsibilities. And there is a sexual relationship, there is a responsibilities of being a wife, and then there can be abuse in that marriages. So they were wondering how these little girls don't fear from becoming a child bride. I would argue they may very well experience certain forms of um, fear, but it is normalized in society. That's why they accept it. Or maybe not accept it, but they are forced to accept that kind of situation. So, societies and the norms experienced in that society makes the experience of fear differently. So if if you think about our last class, I talked about the four main theories in sociology. I said we are going to examine everything what's going on in society and try to see through these lenses to understand sociologically. Now, function of fear takes us back to structural functionalism. So, what is the function of fear in society? Probably number one, this is my own my own, how I see the function of fear. One of them is protection, that you are experiencing some kind of danger in society, and that fear is to protect that person from what's going to happen. Fear makes you take the precautions before that danger comes to your life. Or, in other words, fear serves as a protective function by alerting individuals to potential dangers and motivating behaviors that reduce risk or danger, um, or increase safety in society. So that is one of the functions of fear. So that prepares people to unknown or perceived risk or danger, right? The second one is social cohesion. That is one of the functions of fear I think sociologists are most interested. Fear can promote social cohesion. For example, if you study the social contract, so you can see there is one, I forgot the name of it. There is a danger, right? Because there is a danger, people give their rights to natural rights to the government so the government can protect them. So the perception of danger brings people together. And this is mostly used for wars, and the governments employ people towards like starting, that, the certain kind of um, the social events, because fear promotes social cohesion by fostering collective responses to threat or crisis. It can unite people, it can unite communities, it can unite groups around shared goals, goals of safety or protection of their culture, their country, their nation, and provide security. Another very important function of fear is a political control. Sometimes fear is intentionally created by the governments or institutions to influence public opinion or justify policies or consolidate power. The fear is created to control people, fear is created to manipulate people, and fear is created to tell them how to move or what to do. Especially in the totalitarian governments, that fear is created and spread through propaganda in society. So people became like individual, atomized people. That um, connection between people were destroyed, so they are easily controllable. Now you can say that fear can create social cohesion. People will get together and become stronger. Or in some cases, fear is created to atomize people. So they have no connections to religion or groups or some kind of, let's say, traditional stuff. So they lose their connections to their loved ones, right? So fear can be used in many different ways in society. Also, the function of fear can be observed as an individual behavior. Fear influences individual decision making processes. So it affects choices related to health, relationships, employment, and lifestyle. Sometimes people don't apply to certain job, like job of their dreams, because they are scared of something. Maybe they are not, they are scared of unknown. Maybe they feel fear from not being able to do a good job. There are fear from relationships. Maybe people can commit to relationships because of the fear of losing that person. Or maybe we don't go to dentist, so we are scared of dentist pulling out our teeth. So there's all different kinds of fear experienced in individual level. So we can conclude for today's class that fear is a complex and very multifaceted emotion that intersect with social structures, power dynamics, cultural contexts, and sociologists analyze the fear in society to help us understand how fear is created, how fear is shaped and experienced and managed within different societies, how it's heightened or how it's lessens, its implications for social behavior and, and collective well-being. Also, how fear help us for social change, how we change through the experiences of fear. So our class is called Fear and Social Anxieties. So we would like to understand, or I want you to understand, what is the difference between fear and anxiety. They are very similar feelings, yet they are different. For example, the triggers of fear and anxiety is different, can be different. For example, the fear is triggered by a present identifiable threat or danger, but anxiety is triggered by uncertainty, anticipation, potential harm. However, the danger is not identified sometimes. It can be in the further future or something unknown that creates anxiety in society. And another thing is fear tends to be temporary and subsides once the perceived threat is removed and or resolved. It just fear is a shorter experience, or fear is something happening right away. Anxiety, on the other hand, can persist over a longer time. One might have anxiety about something for all their lives. Some people are scared of heights and they have anxiety to go that places, and they always have this experience. The intensity of fear and anxiety is also different. For example, fear is very intense compared to anxiety. It can acute, involving a strong emotional and psychological response, but anxiety may manifest as a persistent feeling of, like, let's say, tension, restlessness, or nervousness. Maybe people have trouble sleeping because of the anxieties they experience. So it's a different kinds of feeling. However, they coexist in societies. That's why our course is about fear and social anxieties. So, what is culture of fear? How do we experience fear? So, to understand the culture of fear, we need to think about not an individual, but larger society. What kind of fears exist in society that multiple people or majority of people afraid of? Sometimes economic crisis happen in society and people lose their jobs, right? That is the culture of fear in that society. People are losing their jobs. Maybe there is not enough secure jobs. Maybe there is precarious jobs in society. So people are scared of not being able to provide for their families. That's the kind of fear exists in society, and many people in society can experience at the same time or in certain time period. Also, in our time, obesity can be a culture of fear. People are always talking about what, some of the academic work I read was the certain very large number in society thinks they need to lose weight. So there is a fear from obesity in society. Certain kinds of body images created, certain kind of body image is being portrayed as ideal. Now people don't have that, keep thinking about obesity all the time. There is a fear from obesity. So that can be also a culture of fear that helps us to understand culture of fear. The times of COVID, for example, the whole world was scared of this unknown tiny virus that was killing people. So the fear was experienced all over the world. And as we said, people are experienced it differently. However, that fear existed in society, which tells us that we live through the culture of fear in this quite few years when COVID entered the world. Also, threat of terrorism, for example, or in BC, we see sometimes fires, wildfires. These are the anxieties and fears people may experience in society. So when the society experiencing certain kind of fear, that society is explained or observed through the experiences of fear, which is can be called the culture of fear. The culture of fear is introduced by scholar. His name is Frank Rudy. That concept was introduced in his book called Culture of Fear, Risk Taking and the Morality of Low Expectations. That the concept of culture of fear, refers to a social and cultural atmosphere characterized by widespread anxiety, apprehension, and a heightened sense of insecurity or vulnerability within a society. That is from Freddy's book called Culture of Fear. So he says, and this is from his book, he says, fear plays a key role in 21st century consciousness. So he's talking about culture of fear. Increasingly, we seem to engage with various issues through a narrative of fear. You could see this trend emerging and taking hold in the last century, which was frequently described as an age of anxiety. But in recent decades, it has become more and better defined as specific fears have been cultivated. So it's a very good book to read. I assigned um, some of the chapters of this book as a reading, and I hope you enjoy it. So what we're afraid of. So throughout the human world, since the humans start to live in this world, there was different kinds of fear experienced in different societies. Certainly we can think of that the first people experienced more fear from natural disasters, and they experienced, for example, let's say fires or extreme cold or extreme hot. And also there is lightning or thunder. All of them was not understood well, and that's why people were scared of unknown. Today we can go to bed and sleep peacefully even it's raining or lightning or there's a thunderstorm, because we understand that is for certain time and it will pass, and tomorrow morning by the time we get up it can be sunny and everything can be all right, right? But at that time there was unknown about them, which made them very scary. So we can again see the social construction of fear in this case. So in our society, we might fear from man-made disasters, that many of them happening in our world. For example, environmental changes or pollution in society, and those kind of like a man-made stuff, right? Also, there is always fear of death, fear of change. People sometimes very anxious, or they feel extreme anxieties for changes. There is always fear of the unknown, and we will talk in our next classes deeper about it. There is a fear of loss, loss of jobs, loss of loved ones, loss of wealth, loss of some other things, loss of reputation. So there is a fear of loss, fear of politics. Just we mentioned earlier, there is totalitarian governments. Governments try to manipulate people, try to control people. Also, we often experience fear of rejection, being rejected from a job interview, being rejected by loved ones, being rejected by friends, being rejected, whatever you can think of. So there are always fear in our societies. So the experiences of fear changed over time. In one of the classes in the future, we will talk about how fear is displayed in cinema, and after certain times that appears in our world in one way or another. I just wanted to give you a little bit of clue for you to think how, what kind of um, things were portrayed and what actually created in society. In 1950s, for example, there was movies about something big and huge and destroys society, and there was nuclear bombs created after that. So somehow the what cinema portrays comes back in one way or another. So, and then uh, close to our time, maybe like 10, 20 years ago, we start to create movies about zombies. And zombies are the people that, they do certain things, they are scary, they can, chew people, and they can do bloodshed. And now we have terrorists like zombies, right? The portrayal or images created in cinema somehow connects us with the fears created in our societies. Also, there are quiet fears of everyday life. Sometimes we don't talk about them, or sometimes it's just inside us and dies out inside us, or just stays with that. It can be fear of rejection, fear of failure, when people are trying to graduate from school or starting a new relationship or starting a new life. They can fear of failure, fear of uncertainty, fear of change, fear of conflict, fear of inadequacy. Maybe there's not enough money, maybe there's not enough respect, maybe there is not enough love, fear of aging in morality as people age, and they are 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. The fear of aging and mortality can increase. Fear of loneliness. Some people are attached to abusive relationships because of the fear of loneliness. So this is really, it gets interesting as we study. Fear of judgment, how people are being judged today, and how we're afraid of being judgment, and how social norms play a huge role understanding fear of judgments. Fear of missing out. What are we missing out? Missing out news, missing out opportunities, missing out good jobs, missing out relationships, missing out sun. There is always a fear of missing out stuff, which we often use FOMO. So we will be discussing that as well. So now what I would like to do is introduce you some of the questions we are going to explore in this throughout our course. Number one, so one of the questions we will ask in our each class when we discuss about fear and anxieties in society, what is really fear? And how does it shape our perception of behavior? We try to see through that lens when we look at residential schools, when we look at totalitarian governments, when we look at the fear from breaching our privacy. So we will take a look at these questions. What are the sources of fear in society, and how do they vary across cultures and contexts? What is the culture of fear, and how does it influence social attitudes, policies, and media representations? Who or what influences our fears, and how do societal institutions and media contribute to shaping our fears, especially when something is spread through media these days? It's just like the as fast as lightning. It just goes everywhere, and sometimes fears are heightened because of social media, or sometimes they lessened by them. How fear is strategically used in our society, by whom and for what purposes, especially when we are studying creation of fear through political means. We will consider this question quite a bit. From what aspects of life do we seek security, and how this desire for security shape our behavior and social structures? And then the next set of questions are, how can we apply sociological theories to understand fear within its social contexts, including power dynamics, cultural influence, and historical factors? So in this case, we will try to see the certain situations through sociological theories or sociological perspectives to understand really how that is socially constructed, how fear is experienced, who created the fear, and who experienced it, and the distribution of fear between different social groups. Given the pervasive presence of fear in society, how do we envision or pursue ideals of utopia, and what role fear play in shaping these aspirations? So this is all I wanted to share with you and talk with you today. And I will create Telegram channel, or we can connect through Blackboard. And please, 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 any questions you have, please let me know, and we will have discussions. All right. Thank you for your time. This is all for now. I hope you guys enjoy your day. Bye-bye.